At this time, we'll call to order the Stillwater Economic Development Authority for March 25th, 2024. Trustees, action on the consent docket.
Move to approve the consent docket.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve consent. Please vote. It's approved with a vote of 5-0. Next is to item 5A, consider requests submitted by Progressive Development LLC for public infrastructure financing support for public parking associated with the project at 116 West 10th Avenue. Mr. Moore.
Yes, good evening, Chairman and trustees. Brady Moore, Deputy City Manager. Here tonight to present the request from Progressive Development Corp. LLC for financial assistance for public infrastructure improvements adjacent to the recently approved Empire Slice project at 116 West 10th Avenue. As you will recall, the Stillwater investment plan, the Stillwater Downtown Campus Link project plan, has a budget that includes $11,617,500 for public infrastructure facilities and improvements. And to date, $627,979 of this public infrastructure budget funds have been spent on public infrastructure, so about 5% of the overall budget to date. Progressive Development has obtained 3 quotes for the installation of 8 public parking stalls, including 1 ADA accessible and curb along the north side of the Empire Slice project at 10th Avenue. So again, this is the public parking area in our public right-of-way. And there was included in your packet was a attached site plan that shows the highlighted area of the public parking that's under consideration tonight. The low quote submitted of the 3 quotes was $48,124.72. The TIF 3 Implementation Policy Committee met on March 11th, 2024 to consider this request from Progressive Development, and the TIF Committee approved the recommendation to you, the trustees, tonight for the public infrastructure financing support, and the vote was 5-0. As an additional note, during that discussion with the committee, there was support from them to create additional spots for staff to look at possibly creating additional spots on the south side of the road, which would kind of complete the full block on 10th for parking between Main and Husband, which would help all the businesses and restaurants in that area. But tonight, again, you're just looking at this highlighted area that's before you, and Corey from Progressive Development is here, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Trustees, any questions? So, Brady, just to be clear, these the developer is required to build parking as part of the development.
Typically, when our code does have parking requirements when you develop on private land or in private areas. What's different about in a district like this in a downtown area is that you have public right-of-way that is adjacent to these buildings. In fact, our right-of-way lines go right up to some of these old warehouses that Corey's been redeveloping. So participation from a city in some of the public realm has occurred at Stone Cloud and other TIF projects. The building height, Corey can correct me, I think it's like 4 or 5 feet you got to get up into this building that Empire Slice is occupying. This building has not been ADA accessible. It now will be. It's a pretty expensive ramp and stairs that he's funding as his side of the project. So he's just asked for assistance on these 8 public parking spots.
Yeah, that was the second part of my question. These are in fact public parking spots, right? These are not reserved for this business in particular or any other business in the area, but are. That's
right. Good Little Eaters customers, okay. Tokyo Pot, all those can park here as well.
And I assume they'll go into one of our timed parking categories at this point. Are they 90-minute spots? Do we know what they'll be? The
other spots, it'll be, we always try to, work with the local vendors in those areas and see what's best for them. But also what's adjacent, we'll look at what's adjacent in front of. But yes, we will make that consistent.
So just for fun, just to the east of here in front of Good Little Eater and Tokyo Pot, it's like gravel.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume that's public right away right there.
Yes.
I don't know if we looked at, as part of these projects, potentially improving those
Yes.
parking spots. So it's,
Yes.
Okay.
Good question. Yeah, we have looked all the way from Lewis to Husband. The road condition is it's less than ideal. Again, we have more important projects that you're going to see next week that are in front of that project. And so right now, this is a way to create public parking spots. But as we redesign that corridor from Husband to Lewis, we would like to redesign the parking right there in front of Tokyo Pot and Good Little Eater.
It'd be great if we could just mark them at some point now, because now if you go and pull in front of there, like, you can't really, there's no lines. And so
yeah.
I think there's not as many spots get used.
Okay.
Because people don't actually park in a spot.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, I'll make a note. That's something we can look at
we could
doing.
we could at least stripe them so that people can sort of see where they're supposed to park and not take up more room than they should.
Yeah, we can also have the headers there that make sure it kind of identifies the
Yeah.
parking stalls. That's a great idea. Okay.
Yeah,
Any other-
because there's going to be a lot of people down here.
Yeah,
in
it's
this
exciting
area,
to
and
see
that's
that
a good
area.
thing. All right, trustees, other questions?
So we're being asked to fund the entire $48,000 of this project.
Through the infrastructure funds that are in the TIF.
Right.
And that is what the TIF committee kind of oversees, and they supported that and wanted that recommendation brought to you.
Because it's city-owned street parking.
Yes, sir. Yeah, as I mentioned, the right of way in this area, which is our public owned, city owned area of the town, the right of way is a term you hear a lot. That area, those lines, when you look on our GIS maps, go right up to those buildings. So it's all our public area, and this is our way to participate in creating that public parking.
So to be clear, because I had a few questions for planning on this as well. So development in this particular district does certain things can trigger the developer required to make public realm improvements. This development, because of the square footage and other triggers, I can't remember, it was either 5 to 7 spots are required to be installed by the developer, but because the location is in the TIF, he can request for that financing support through the TIF funds available, the public infrastructure financing. So does that clarify a little bit more?
But the developer could not have installed parking in the right-of-way. Is that correct?
Because of his development in this area, he was required to install that off-street parking. And so in connection with that, he is requesting for assistance because the development of those spots supports the project objectives of the TIF 3.
Yeah, you couldn't have built private parking in our right of way.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And that's honestly one of the main purposes of the TIF in the first place, is to allow the city to assist with some of those public realm improvements so that these developments become viable, and that we would not have nice parking spots here if we weren't having a development right next door. So, yep. Further comments, questions? Or Brady, are we ready for a recommendation?
I've got a motion if you need it.
Let's hear it.
All right, motion to accept the recommendation of the TIF number 3 Implementation Policy Committee to approve the request for public infrastructure financing support for public parking associated with the project located at 116 West 10th Avenue.
Trustees?
Motion to accept staff recommendations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the recommendation. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that recommendation is approved. Thank you, Brady. I saw in the newspaper that May something is our opening date for our pizza there. Is that the plan still?
I was asking her if she would be open May 15th, and she said she would be, so.
So for graduation?
At May 1st, I think she said high school graduation, but probably not.
Okay. All right. That takes us to item 7, reports from the officers and board. Ms. Carnley.
Request for an executive session as authorized under 25 OS Section 307 C11 for purposes of conferring on matters pertaining to economic development, including the transfer of property, financing, or the creation of a proposal to entice a business to remain or to locate within our jurisdiction if public disclosure of the matter discussed would interfere with the development of products or services, or public disclosure would violate the confidentiality of the business.
Thank you. Ms. Meek? Nothing from you? Trustees, anything from you all? All right. Do we have a motion to enter executive session for the reasons requested by the city attorney?
So moved.
Second.
With a motion and a second to enter executive session, please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the Stillwater Economic Development Authority will now be in executive session. And we're back. Is there a motion to reconvene in regular session?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to reconvene as CETA. Please call the roll.
Chair Joyce,
Yes?
Vice Chair Jaloski,
Yes.
Trustee Hawkins,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee Harden.
Yes.
Was there any recommended action from executive session?
No action.
No action recommended. Is there a motion to adjourn CETA?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Chair Joyce,
Yes?
Vice Chair Jaloski,
Yes.
Trustee Hawkins,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee Harden.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, the Stillwater Economic Development Authority is now adjourned, and that concludes our meetings for this evening.